Good evening. Before we get started, I wanted to apologize for the delay in start. We were in closed session and conversation went on longer than we thought. Good afternoon or good evening. Today is March 18th, 2025. I'd like to welcome everyone to the City Council meeting. Call this meeting to order, and I'd like to call upon Councilmember Syrup if he could please do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise if you're able.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, you can please take the roll.
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Councilmember Andrews? Present. Councilmember Bonilla Jr.?
Present.
Councilmember Goldstein?
Present.
Councilmember Roach? Present. Councilmember Syrup?
Present.
Councilmember Cermeño? Mayor Salinas?
Present. Thank you. Next, we have our closed session announcement for March 8th, 2025 and March 18th, 2025. Mr. City Attorney.
Mayor, I'll report on the first three items, defer to you on item number 4. First, the council met with legal counsel to discuss pending litigation, Gali versus 1909. Council took no reportable action. Council met with legal counsel to consider pending litigation, Blickenstaff versus City of Hayward. Council approved settlement in the amount of $500,000, with the city contributing $250,000 from budgeted funds and the city's insurance partner contributing $250,000. The action was unanimously approved, moved by Councilmember Syrup, seconded by Councilmember Cermeño. Council met with labor negotiators to discuss all bargaining groups. Council gave direction to staff, but otherwise took no reportable action. Number 4, Mayor, I'll defer to you.
I have to look at my notes. Item number 4 was the public employment of city attorney and city clerk. It was a unanimous vote, and we are going to return after this council meeting to have further discussion.
Mayor Salinas. I omitted reporting out of closed session from March 8th. That was the Saturday work session. The council considered a matter involving anticipated litigation. It was added to the agenda by unanimous consent of the council. The council discussed and took no reportable action.
Thank you. Okay, next we have a special. We have a special item. It is Women's History Month, and we have 11 proclamations. I think that beats our record of proclamations. We have 11 individuals I'd like to acknowledge that are here today. Representing the organization Love Never Fails, Vanessa Russell. Vanessa, welcome. We can give Vanessa a round of applause. From Safe Alternatives to Violent Environments Incorporated, SAVE, Chow Lee is here, Miss Lee. From Black Women Organized for Political Action, BWAPA, the South Hayward Chapter Charter, Raquel Johnson. Raquel. From Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., Hayward Tri-City Alumni Chapter, Jana Nix. From Zeta Pi Beta Sorority, I always mess this up. Yeah. Oh, Zeta Phi Chapter. Iota Delta Zeta Chapter, Dr. Anita Clark. Thank you, Councilmember Andrews. I was not Greek in college. I guess that's an indicator that I was not in a fraternity in college. For League of Women Voters of Eden Area, Sarah Lamnon, President. And then for the Hill and Valley Club, Susan Gilkey Call. Yeah, welcome. Let's see, this name, Supervisor Elisa Marquez from Alameda County. Put my glass, oh, okay, there you are, there you are. From Women in Leadership from California State University East Bay, Amy Marshall. Amy, welcome. And then from Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, you're gonna have to help me on this one again. Talmu, is that, okay, the Talmu chapter, Alexis Austin. And then, of course, from the city of Hayward, the fabulous director of our library, Gianti Adelman. Okay. I will, the proclamations are up there. I was gonna have, yeah, why don't Councilmember Andrews and Councilmember Roach, if you can go down there and hold the proclamations, I will read. And if those individuals that I called, after I'm finished reading, then we can all come up and then we'll hand you the proclamation. Yeah, just hold. Yeah, you can stay down there. Yeah. Okay. So proclamation. Whereas Women's History Month began in 1987, evolving from a single day to a week, and eventually to a full month of observance and celebration dedicated to recognizing the historical contributions of women from all backgrounds to society. And whereas the movement to establish Women's History Month in the United States was initiated by the National Women's History Alliance in Santa Rosa, California. And whereas during this month of celebration, we honor the often overlooked roles of women who have played in shaping our society while raising awareness of the struggles they have faced, including but not limited to gender inequality in the workforce, underrepresentation in leadership roles, restrictions on reproductive rights, lack of access to quality health care, pay disparities, and systematic barriers faced by women of color. And whereas the theme for Women's History Month 2025, Moving Forward Together, Women Educating and Inspiring Generations, honors the impact of women who have dedicated their lives to education, mentorship, leadership, and empowerment of future generations. And whereas the City of Hayward is committed to applying an intersectional approach to gender equity within the broader context of racial equity, and the city honors community agencies that support the city's commitment through programs to improve the lives and livelihoods of Hayward women and girls. And whereas Love Never Fails is committed to serving individuals vulnerable to human trafficking, including women of color, people who are economically disadvantaged, and those with less access to education and family support. Love Never Fails provides housing, career development, counseling, case management, and most of all, friendship, respect, honor, and love to those women and girls. Whereas for 50 years, Safe Alternative to Violent Environments, SAVE, Incorporated, has provided safety, support, and resources for people to live free from intimate partner violence and engaged communities in the work to end violence. And whereas Black Women Organized for Political Action, BWOPA, was founded in 1968 to empower Black women in political and community leadership, and the Hayward South County chapter is dedicated to advancing equity and justice through civic engagement, advocacy, and leadership development in Hayward and beyond. Whereas the Tri-City Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority was Delta, sorry, my apologies, was chartered on March 2nd, 1990, and upholds the legacy of its 22 trailblazing founders by offering free programs for girls in the community, including Delta Gems and Delta Academy focused on self-esteem, health, wellness, STEM, supporting women and children by sponsoring Ruby's Place and Dolly's Closet and providing scholarships to deserving community students. And whereas Iota, Delta, Zeta chapter and Tau Mu chapter of Zeta Phi Beta, Iota, I will get this. Sorority Incorporated has been serving the city of Hayward for 45 years and continues to collaborate and promote service, scholarship, sisterhood, and finer womanhood for all women and girls during Women's History Month. And the League of Women Voters of the Eden area is an inclusive organization dedicated to political responsibility through informed and active participation. And whereas the Hill and Valley Club is a charitable club of women living in Hayward and Castro Valley, which provides scholarships to the local community. Whereas the Women in Leadership program at California State University East Bay accelerates students' skills through academia, industry, collaboration, offering high impact learning, mentorship from industry leaders, and opportunities to apply their learning to social causes. And whereas Women's History Month, we recognize our community's own trailblazers in local government, including Alameda County District 2 Supervisor Elisa Marquez, Hayward's first African-American woman to serve as Mayor Pro Tem and current council member Angela Andrews, and Hayward current Mayor Pro Tem Julie Roach. Now, therefore, I, Mark Salinas, Mayor of the City of Hayward, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim March 2025 as Women's History Month. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give this illustrious group of women a big round of applause. The individuals who I called, why don't you come on up and we'll hand out the Okay.
We standing on it?
Yeah, and then the mic is on, so you're ready to go.
All righty. To Mayor Salinas, council members, and all those in the assembly. My name is Jonna Nix, and I'm the Vice President of the Hayward Tri-City Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. On behalf of our chapter president, Lonnie M. Taylor, and all of our members, we extend our heartfelt thanks for the recognition and proclamation. Women's History Month gives us the opportunity to honor the trailblazers who came before us, the ones who dared to dream, fought for justice, and stood firm even when the world tried to push them down. As members of Delta Sigma Theta, this month carries even more weight. It's our Sisterhood Month, a time to celebrate our bond that unites us, the love that uplifts us, and the power we hold when we stand together. We are the daughters of 22 courageous visionaries, our founders, who defied the odds and built a legacy that still propels us forward today. Our chapter strives to continue this legacy by uplifting women and girls through programs such as our Delta Academy and GEMS program, which addresses issues confronting our young women, including academic failure, low self-esteem, mental health, wellness, and human trafficking. We also support other organizations within our community, such as A Sister's Touch, Ruby's Place, Dolly's Closet, local schools and churches. Additionally, we provide programs and events to raise awareness on financial literacy, mental health and wellness, and civic engagement. Once again, we are honored to receive this proclamation and look forward to continuing our work in this great city. Thank you.
Hello, council members and mayor. I am Susan Gelke, and this is Pat McNichol, and we are actually co-presidents of the Hill and Valley Club. We want to thank you for acknowledging our beloved Hill and Valley Club during Women's History Month. We've been around a long time, although a lot of people don't seem to know we exist. Founded in 1910 by a group of dedicated women who saw an opportunity to work together to improve their community and to contribute to causes that they felt strongly about, the group grew in membership to about 250 women under the umbrella of the California Federation of Women's Club. If you stroll around Hayward or drive, you will see streets named Winton, Gadding, Guerin, Oaks, Roos, and Moreau. And those are all some of the names of the original women in the Hill and Valley Club. These astute women even managed to have their own clubhouse built on B Street in 1952, where it still stands today and is the heart of what we do. Once women began to work outside of their homes, membership in the club began to dwindle. However, we have endured through wars, recessions, depressions, and pandemics. We're smaller, but an equally determined group of women who enjoy giving scholarships to our high school seniors and Chabot College nursing students, and to contribute to many other charities and causes in our community, such as FESCO, Ruby's Place, Salvation Army, and the Alameda County Food Bank. We're members of the Chamber of Commerce and offer rental space to other charitable groups as well as other interested parties. We're the oldest charitable group in Hayward. Yesterday, we celebrated our 115th birthday. We welcome any of you to drop by and check out our club, and we always welcome new members. It's true that we are a women's club, but men are also welcome to come to any of our events and maybe even become one of our first male members. Thank you.
Good evening, esteemed Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for recognizing the League of Women Voters of the Eden area. The League was formed over 100 years ago, and our local chapter was about 75 or so years ago. We've been dedicated and met with many of you over the years for candidate forums, for pros and cons, always with an eye towards equity and inclusion and fair and balanced opportunity. The League digs into issues in a researched and ethical way so that we can effectively advocate for issues like the environment, voters' rights, fair redistricting, and on and on and on. So we, in this time, are dedicated to the fight and continue that value. And thank you for your recognition.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and community. Thank you so much for this honor tonight, this recognition. My name is Elisa Marquez, and I'm really excited to be here. Just want to uplift all the other amazing honorees. Let's give them a round of applause. And to just emphasize the importance of supporting women in leadership. We are the backbone of this community. It's an honor to be a public servant and to serve this community practically my entire life, but I think it's important that we acknowledge we are truly the sandwich generation, where we're raising our children, young adults, and our elders. So just want to acknowledge all the women in this organization, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm wearing this beautiful stone. I just came back from a trip from overseas and just really embraced the culture of the indigenous Maori people of Awatora, and I wanted to share a word with you that I learned that it just really encompasses the way I think we should all be thinking, and that's whānau, just really looking at the well-being of our entire community, our extended family. So just thank you for this recognition, and it's truly an honor to serve this community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Raquel Johnson, and I'm honored to serve as the president of the Hayward South County chapter of Black Women Organized for Political Action. So again, thank you, Honorable Mayor, esteemed City Council members, members of the Racial Equity Division, and the distinguished guests here today. I stand here tonight deeply grateful for this recognition and in solidarity with the incredible organizations being honored for their work advancing equity for women and for girls. BWOPA was founded over 55 years ago on the principle that Black women's political power is essential to shaping policies that create a more just and equitable society. Our mission is continually elevating into ensuring that Black women in our communities are politically educated, civically engaged, and positioned to lead at every level of decision-making. At the local level here in Hayward, we work to empower women to step into leadership, whether through voter education, policy advocacy, or direct engagement with city initiatives. We believe that change happens when we have a seat at the table, our voices are heard, and our priorities are reflected in policy. At the state level, BWOPA has been driving force in advocating for legislative policies that address racial and gender inequities, whether fighting for maternal health protections, economic opportunity, or just system reforms that disproportionately impact women of color. We know that when Black women rise, entire communities rise with us. But this work does not happen in isolation. The organizations honored here tonight represent the power of collective action, each of us bringing our unique strengths to ensure that women and girls have access to safety, opportunity, and equity. As we celebrate Women's History Month, let it not only be a time of reflection, but a call to action. Representation matters, advocacy matters, engagement matters. And together, we are ensuring that the path forward is one where women, especially women of color, can thrive. Thank you for this honor and for your continued partnership in this fight for equity and justice. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Salinas and City Council members and guests. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of women in leadership at Cal State East Bay. I'm Amy Marshall. I'm a graduate, 2022, of Cal State East Bay. I'm the program coordinator for McNair Scholars Program. I'm also a graduate student in the one-year accelerated MBA program. And a Women in Leadership Fellow. It's an honor to stand here today as we celebrate Women's History Month and recognize the invaluable contributions of women leaders in our community. Leadership is not just about holding positions of power. It's about resilience, collaboration, and creating pathways for those who follow. Women in Leadership at Cal State East Bay is committed to fostering inclusive spaces where scholars like me can grow, lead, and make lasting impressions. We sincerely appreciate the City of Hayward's recognition of our contributions. By uplifting women's voices, we strengthen our institutions and our entire community. So thank you again for recognizing us with this proclamation, and thank you for your service.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Vanessa Russell. I'm the founding executive director of Love Never Fails. Thank you so much to you, Mayor Salinas, to all of you council members and guests. And I'm so grateful to be counted amongst the list, the 11 nominees or awardees today. So grateful and to be honored. So grateful to be a woman in the city of Hayward and feel safe here and feel seen here. And today I represent survivors of human trafficking in Hayward and throughout the greater Bay Area. And many of you may or may not know that human trafficking is disproportionately impacting 2 women. In one study, I actually jotted down a few notes. One Bay Area report included 165 separate investigations across 8 agencies, and 91% of the cases were involving sex trafficking. And it reported that of those that were involved, 94% were victims. Of the victims were women. 88% of those women were under 25. 49% were minors, and 72% were girls and women of color. So it is very important that we continue to do this work, to partner together to ensure that women are safe in our city, in our county, in our world. And I just want to thank you all for being a very important part of that. Thank you. Mayor Salinas, members of the City Council, there's little I can add to what's already been said, but I do want to say thank you for all that you have done for this proclamation, for acknowledging the role of women in our society and in our city. On behalf of the library, thank you so much for this, and on behalf of all of the women who work for the City of Hayward, I thank you for this honor and for the opportunity to serve our community and continue to raise women up. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member, and the community. I'm Chow Lee, Director of Development at SAFE. Today, I represent survivors of domestic violence. I'm also a survivor. Thank you to the City of Hayward for your long-standing support for SAFE services and programs in the community, including our 24-bed shelter, 24 hours crisis line, our emergency motel accommodation, case management, food and clothing support for survivors, counseling, prevention, education in middle school and also high school. Each year, we assist over 10,000 individuals across all of our programs, which is a significant number, and without your support, we couldn't have done that. However, we regret to hear that there was a discussion about potentially cutting funding for our organization, and we sincerely hope that you'll reconsider for the future of the community. So thank you so much again for recognizing SAFE and all the women's organizations in the community. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alexis Austin. I am a representative of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority, the Tau Mu undergraduate chapter at CSU East Bay, and it is an incredible honor to stand here today celebrating Women's History Month and the remarkable contributions of women throughout history. As a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, I am deeply grateful for this proclamation that uplifts the legacy of strong, trailblazing women. Founded in 1920 on the principles of scholarship, service, sisterhood, and finer womanhood, Zeta Phi Beta has spent over a century making a difference in communities worldwide. From advocating for social justice to serving those in need, our organization remains committed to empowering women and strengthening our communities. Being a part of this proclamation is more than just a recognition. It is a reminder of our responsibility to continue the work of those who came before us. Women's history is being written every day, and as a member of Zeta, we strive to leave a legacy of excellence, service, and leadership. Thank you for this honor, and may we continue to uplift and celebrate the power of women, past, present, and future.
She said everything I was going to say. Good evening. First, I want to thank Mayor Salinas and the council for this honor. My name is Dr. Annetta Clark. I am the president of Iota Delta Zeta chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. We are the sponsoring grad chapter to TALMU, which is at CSU East Bay. One of the things I want to discuss is we celebrate finer womanhood during this month as well. So everything that she just said is pretty much how we celebrate the women in our organization and those that came before us. We have collaborations with the March of Dimes, which we are just kicking off as well, where, you know, we talk about prenatal and prevention of, you know, trying to detect, you know, anything that's going on with the fetus and things of that nature. So these are just things that we are excited about. We have our youth that we have as well, from the age of 4 all the way up to the age of 17 that we sponsor and we uplift as well. So this is a great honor to have this proclamation, and we definitely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I deeply apologize for mispronouncing some of the acronyms of your sorority, so I apologize. She is very modest, and I wanted to acknowledge, of course, former council member Sarah Lamnin, but is now not only a major contributor to the League of Women Voters of Eden area, but she's also here as director of the Hayward Area Recreation Park District too. So Sarah, thank you for your leadership. Always keeping it local government, so thank you very much. Next, I'd like to move on to public comment, but before I go to public comment, Madam City Clerk, I misspoke when I did the report out for our closed session announcement. We did not take a vote, and it was pulled, and we will further discuss it at another meeting. So I just wanted to make that clarification, and I apologize. Okay, next item is our public comments. This is reserved for anybody in the public or online that would like to make a public comment on something on the agenda or not on the agenda. I do have one card here, and the name on the card is, it says free laser, so I don't know what that means. But, oh, okay. All right. Free laser. Welcome. Come on up and.
Thank you, Mayor Salinas and council members.
Hit the button on the base. There you go. You got it. You're good. You're good. It's already been pressed.
Got it? Okay, we're recording. Okay. I usually can speak loud enough I don't need a microphone, but we'll do it both ways. Anyway, Mayor Salinas, council members, managers, various managers, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come in and speak today. I've never been to any kind of a meeting like this in my life. And before I introduce myself and get into my issue, I wanted to say that I've had 2 contacts with some of the people working in here in the last couple of days, finding out about when I could come in and speak on this. And I was so surprised at how personable and service-oriented they were, genuinely stopping to take the time to help me when I think people would normally be wanting to rush out at their end of the day of their job. So I really want to commend the people that work in here. So far, it's been great. Let me introduce myself. My name is Free. My last name is Laser, Free Laser. I'm a disc jockey at KCRH 89.9 FM radio, among many other things that I do. I'm also disabled and over 70 years old by the numbers, although 32 in all other respects are about there. Both of these matters, disability and age, are at the heart of what I'm here to talk about. I also have a vehicle disability placard for my disability, and it does no good for the issue I'm about to raise. I'm even wondering if the issue I'm about to raise violates federal law, the ADA specifically, and whether or not it does, I don't think that should be the reason to motivate a change and a solution to this problem that I'm about to bring to you. Again, a little bit more about my introduction. Decades ago, I lived in Fremont as a college student, an Alameda County realtor, a pilot. I learned to fly here at Hayward Airport, and I owned various properties there. I left this area then for several decades and returned in 2023. I am now a full-time student at Chabot College, where I'm a disc jockey, as I mentioned, and that radio station serves the East Bay and actually worldwide online. Since everybody always asks, even though it's irrelevant to this, my majors are music, film, and mass communications. Now let me get into the issue that I came to talk about. A couple of weeks ago, I moved across town in Hayward to just a few blocks from Chabot College, and every first and third Monday of each month, they have street sweepers come through, and we have to move our vehicles. It's hard enough to find a parking spot without that even in the equation. It's just a jammed up mess to get a place to park close to my home. There's nothing left for me in the driveway, and I often have to park a long way away. I could end up on the street, down, not able to move because of my condition that comes and goes. You can't see it here. I'm not going to make an issue of it with my cane. But it's a serious disability issue, and I feel like I'm going through the problem I'm going through because I'm doing the right thing being a full-time college student. I go to college early in the morning from about 8 o'clock, and I'm usually still there at 9 to 10 o'clock at night. That's my life pretty much. And there's a reason for that, because I'm somewhat computer illiterate, and I need to take a lot more time to do the work that everybody else can do in a shorter period of time.
Mr. Laser, I apologize, but your 3 minutes are up.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that I had that time.
But I'll tell you what. I'll give you a break, and I'll give you, if you can summarize what you have to say in 15 seconds, I'll give you 15 seconds.
I'm very close to the end. Okay. I have to park a quarter mile to a half a mile away when the street sweeper's coming through. I get a hefty fine. I have 40 pounds of gear I often carry on my back to and from school, and it's just an impossible situation for me. I think it may violate the Americans with Disability Act, and even if it doesn't, as I said earlier, that shouldn't be the motivator for a solution to this problem. And there's a possibility of litigation that I don't see why any city would want to go through that. Even where settlements are done, there's often 20 grand, 30 grand in expenses before that's done. So that's the issue. I'm looking for a solution. I have some ideas. I don't have the full solution. But I think that starting out with maybe stopping the heavy fining for people like me, at least, that have disabilities, would be a start.
Thank you. We have your phone number, and someone will certainly follow up with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Our next public commenter is Teresa Resendez, and she's online.
Hi, good evening, City Council members. I hope you are doing well. There's a couple of things I want to bring up. First of all, regarding the homicide this week at the location of the Lucky's grocery store on Mission Boulevard. I wanted to bring up something that was posted on Nextdoor. So I have no factual evidence for this, but I'm just going by a post of a former employee at that Lucky's grocery store location. And they reported on Nextdoor that they were concerned about the roof area, which I'm thinking they're talking about the parking deck over the grocery store. What they're concerned about is that there may be a trailer up there with people trying to utilize illegal businesses. Some may, according to them, perhaps there is sex trafficking going on. Perhaps there is drugs being transferred or people using drugs up on the roof. But I'm just hoping that the city manager will investigate and have the police patrol that area maybe daily for the next month or so to see if in fact anything is going on up there. And that may also include an increase in cameras for that area. And I know that there's some cameras being purchased in the near future, but perhaps some more cameras and, just continue to recruit for more policemen to get their numbers up. And that may also include sign-on bonuses that are greater than they are currently. And then the last thing I want to bring up is this Thursday at 5 p.m., there will be the homeless committee will be meeting at 5 p.m. in the city council office off the city council main room. And I just want to invite the public to attend if they care about the homeless in Hayward and have good ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I do not see any more public comment, so I like to close public comment, and I'll move on to city manager's comments. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In support of the Hayward's Police Department, focus on fostering community relations and trust, I want to highlight an event taking place next Tuesday. HPD is hosting Pastries with the Police. This is a twist on Coffee with a Cop from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Paris Baguette Bakery Cafe on Mission Boulevard. The community is invited to stop in and get to know some of our officers and perhaps experience a new local business over coffee and a bite. Next, I would like to...
Madam City Manager,
yes.
Can you pull the mic closer to the...
Certainly.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to share with you that several Hayward businesses are in the running for the East Bay Innovation Awards. A new release on this topic will go out later this week, but I want to announce that the East Bay Economic Development Alliance has selected 2 cutting-edge Hayward companies as finalists for the East Bay Innovation Awards. The companies are Vive, a modular home builder, and Enditax, a healthcare-focused micro-robotic technology company. Award winners across multiple industrial categories will be announced in the evening of March the 27th at the 2025 Innovation Awards to be held at the Oakland Scottish Rice Center. Promoting the presence of innovative companies here in Hayward is one of the ways our Economic Development Division is working to draw other companies and more investments to our city. For more information on the awards and to join the event, please visit the East Bay Economic Development Alliance website. Mr. Mayor, I'm also very pleased to announce that applications will begin being accepted starting on March the 28th to enter into a lottery for an opportunity to purchase 1 out of 13 income-restricted below market rate condos at the SOMI development in South Hayward. There are 3 3-bedroom units and 10 2-bedroom units available for sale to qualifying moderate and lower income buyers. In Alameda County, moderate income ranges from a gross maximum annual income of $130,000 for one-person household to about $201,000 for a 5-person household. Applications for the SOMI BMR lottery will be accepted until 5 p.m. May the 8th, and the lottery drawing is scheduled to take place on May the 20th. For more information, including how to apply and about the mandatory orientation sessions for the prospective buyers, please contact House Keys Inc. at 1-877-460-KEYS, KEYS. Also, I would like to announce that the Zocalo Coffee grand opening at Downtown Library Pocket Cafe will take place on April the 5th at 11 a.m. This coming Saturday with a ribbon cutting ceremony, which if you're available in the area, we're asking you to please join us. Mayor Salinas will be cutting the ribbon to formally open the cafe. And this week, the Hayward Fire Department is kicking off a public information and engagement campaign to build awareness about new state fire hazard severity maps. An article about this project will be going out tomorrow in our Stack e-newsletter, and a project website is up on the city's website. The article and the website invite property owners in the Hayward Hills to check out the interactive maps to better understand fire hazard severity where they live, to learn about the fire prevention practices, and to provide feedback through an online survey. In addition, we will be sending postcards to residents in the Hayward Hills as another means of getting out the information and inviting a discussion with community members. And one last important note, it's important to understand that the state hazard maps are not expected to impact homeowner insurance rates in California, as the information underlying them is already considered by insurance companies. But the maps are intended to inform and guide local land use planning, code enforcement, and wildfire risk mitigation strategies. And those are my announcements for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our consent calendar, items 1 through 9. I didn't see anybody.
I just wanted to make a comment on 9.
We have one, so I'll tell you what, if it's just one, make a comment, I'll entertain a motion. And, well, actually, before I do that, let me go to public comment first and see if there are any public comment on the consent calendar. There is no public comment. I will close public comment and I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Salinas, my apologies, but I believe there is the hand raised again.
There is a hand raised. Okay, let me go back to public comment. Wait, it was, Ms. Resendez, is your hand raised, or I just saw it turn off and on?
I'm not. I apologize.
Okay, okay. Thank you. So I will close public comment and,
I just want to make a quick comment about number 3.
okay, but before we do that, can we get a motion?
Yes, I will move the items.
Moved by Councilmember Roach, seconded by Councilmember Andrews. Councilmember Andrews, you had a comment on one item, and then so does.
Yes, I just wanted to thank former task force member Douglas Mansell for his service on Keep Hayward Clean and Green. He was instrumental in providing education and outreach for the task force in the city. So thank you, Mr. Douglas Mansell.
Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm really pleased to see item number 3, the Habitat for Humanity Partnership project moving forward. This is a wonderful partnership between the city and Habitat for Humanity, and I think we'll all be glad to see this one come to completion eventually. Thank you.
Councilmember Syro.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question on number 8. It says adopt an ordinance, the legislation text. Is this about introducing the ordinance or adopting it? And is there ordinance text that's supposed to be included with it?
Councilmember Syrup, this is the adoption of the ordinance that was introduced on March 4th.
Okay, so that was already, okay. I was just curious, are we supposed to include the text of the ordinance in this document? Because we have a summary of changes, but I'm not seeing the actual text.
The text was included in the staff report.
Okay.
And I think there was, sorry, I'll let you answer that, City Attorney.
Yes, the ordinance, the introduction of the ordinance had the language. Normally for the adoption, we only do a summary.
Understood. Okay, thank you. That was what I wanted to clarify. I understand that there is the small change that we had suggested last time, the amendment, but I wasn't seeing the other stuff, so I was curious if that was a small error. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Roach, seconded by Councilmember Andrews. Answers have been asked and answered. Madam City Clerk, why don't we go to the roll call? And I'll tell you what, we'll start to my right with Councilmember Zermeño, and then we'll work our way through the dais.
So Mayor, this is the consent calendar.
Yes.
If there are no objections.
If there are no objections, of course, we don't need to do that. And we just, if there are no objections, it will unanimously pass. Of course.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our work session, and thank goodness there will be no voting on this one. That was a joke, Miss Madam City Clerk. Okay. Work session item number 10. It's the tree preservation ordinance. Work session on proposed text amendments to the Hayward Municipal Code for the adoption of an updated tree preservation ordinance. This report will come to us by way of our Development Services Director, Ms. Sarah Bowser, but I don't see Ms. Bowser. I see, I do see, but over here on the dais, I see Mr. Jeremy.
You didn't mispronounce that, so thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Salinas and Hayward City Council members. I'm happy to come back and kind of report out the latest updates that we have on the work that our team has been working on for the last for a while on the tree preservation ordinance. And we're looking really for council feedback prior to finalizing the ordinance and bringing it back for council consideration. So I thought the first thing to do is maybe kind of quickly talk about the background and kind of where we are. So back in 2023, we started this effort to update the tree preservation ordinance, which actually follows about 20 years of working over the outdated framework that no longer aligned not only with best practices, but it did not align with the city's ambitious sustainability and climate action goals. To guide this effort, the city partnered with DUDEC, which was our hired consultant, to evaluate the existing ordinance, to look at other policies from other best practices from jurisdictions, and to develop a set of recommendations that would advance the environmental justice, expand tree canopy, and enhance climate resilience. It has been a very community-driven process. I would say since we started this process about 18 months ago, we've prioritized community input through a robust outreach campaign that includes a citywide survey, engagement at several downtown street events, dedicated project webpage, public work sessions with the Planning Commission and City Council, and we've also held targeted state social media and email updates that were targeted to go out to many of the community stakeholders that are interested in this project. These efforts built on a lot of community conversations that actually started back about 11 years ago, and even further when we developed and adopted the 2014 general plan, as well as adoption of the city's strategic roadmap, which included the tree preservation ordinance updates as a council priority. The recently updated CAP also further underscores the importance of trees in carbon sequestration and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, which are obviously key to building a more sustainable and resilient Hayward. So there are really three key objectives when we started off with this process. The first one is to build clarity and reflect best practices. And this is really through creating an ordinance that is easy to understand, but it also strengthens the tree preservation and mitigation efforts that the city is currently working on. It's also a data-driven objective. So part of that is conducting a citywide tree canopy survey to help establish a baseline for existing tree canopy that could help inform the council and the community on future locations for tree plantings and growth. And then, of course, public safety and sustainability is also key. And that included updating the plant palette around the Hayward Executive Airport to align with FAA guidelines to ensure safety and appropriate landscaping in that area that would minimize any potential wildlife hazards to aviation. So to date, we've held 4 work sessions, 2 with the Planning Commission and 2, tonight being the other one, with the City Council. Community feedback from these sessions, along with extensive stakeholder input, has shaped what staff believes is a relatively balanced and fairly flexible ordinance that integrates the development needs of the city as well as the long-term sustainability goals. So based on that feedback from the Planning Commission, the Council, and from our community stakeholders, staff is recommending several key updates to the ordinance itself, again, that kind of result in not only meeting our sustainability goals, but also work with and to provide practical solutions for individual property owners that are looking to deal with trees in their own property. So one of the things that we had heard through a lot of the community conversations is that a common burden, financial burden that was raised quite frequently, was making a tree replacement more accessible on individual homeowners. And so one of the things that we did is we've changed the requirement, which is our current requirement of requiring an arborist report. And for that, what we're requiring is to address this, the staff is proposing an automatic 2-to-1 replacement policy, when a homeowner is proposing to remove up to 2 trees on their residential property. The benefits of this, of course, include saving the homeowner the cost of hiring an arborist. It streamlines the process for removal of a majority of the tree removals that our division has received in the past. And it also ensures long-term growth and expansion of the tree canopy. By having this automatic 2-to-1 replacement, over time, those trees will then mature and provide a much more robust canopy than what currently exists. Additionally, residential property owners will be offered greater flexibility in selecting or providing replacement trees on or off-site, which would encourage biodiversity while maintaining the overall canopy coverage. The other thing that we're proposing to do is expand the tree preservation ordinance to protect native trees in the rear yard. And the reason why this is important is because this ensures that the preservation and the regeneration of our tree canopy focuses on native species that are best suited for our local climate and our ecosystem. Currently, our tree preservation does not regulate tree removals in the backyard, and that has been something that has been seen as an opportunity to really strengthen our regulatory framework and also provide additional opportunity to expand our canopy. The other thing that we've done is we've simplified exceptions, and that would be included for trees that continue to pose safety or hazardous risks. To make tree removal more efficient for situations like this, staff is proposing exemptions for trees that are dying and dead, that pose a public safety hazard. So, for example, if they're ripping up a sidewalk or roots are damaging a foundation, for trees that are located near an FAA flight safety zone, or based on what we had just heard from the Madam City Mayor, if a tree is located in a designated wildland urban interface area, where removal of that tree would in fact reduce potential wildfire risks, which is something that I think we have become more pronounced as our drought and climate conditions change. Staff believes that this balanced approach helps to prioritize the preservation of drought-tolerant native species while allowing the simultaneous removal of non-native or invasive species that would require excessive irrigation, ongoing maintenance, and pose potential hazards. In addition, staff is proposing to designate what is considered classified as a heritage tree. And as part of this, part of the heritage tree criteria is to ensure that there are some clear findings that are written to ensure that only the most significant trees that have been designated throughout the community receive a higher level of discretionary review. The proposed review process for individuals, that would be just for individual homeowners, would be tied to a staff level site development process where applicants, where neighbors to that property would receive notification that a tree removal request had been received, but there would not necessarily be a requirement for a public hearing unless that particular neighbor or an applicant called the project up, or in fact, if it got called up by a member of City Council. For development projects, however, that are proposing a heritage tree removal, we would just default to the highest level approving body. So in some cases, that would be the Planning Commission. In other cases, it would just get wrapped into a City Council action. As part of the tree preservation ordinance, staff is also recommending refinements that maintain those strong protections while, as I mentioned, offering greater flexibility for homeowners and developers. Again, as I mentioned, it really helps preserve urban forestry and serve as a greater public benefit. And so when considering mitigation requirements, staff is recommending that we maintain the existing requirement for an arborist report when an applicant or a homeowner is proposing to remove 3 or more trees, or if it's required, those removals are required as part of a larger development project. In these cases, the appraised value of the tree would determine the required mitigation, and that would ensure that any loss is adequately offset through replacement requirements that were outlined in the draft ordinance. The approach also preserves accountability while streamlining the process for a lot of the smaller scale applications that we typically see on a daily or weekly basis. We're also proposing a new in-lieu fee option, which provides additional flexibility for homeowners and developers. And that seems to be like one of the most strongest, well-supported proposals that we received, not only from the Planning Commission, but from the City Council, is to introduce this in-lieu fee option. And so as the city works toward balancing the development needs with our sustainability goals, this option would provide property owners with greater flexibility while directly funding urban forestry initiatives. So staff is recommending an in lieu fee based on 100% of the appraised value, which would allow the city to purchase, install, and maintain the new trees for up to 2 years at a location to be determined. These in lieu fees could also be used to expand tree canopy in currently underserved areas that would improve air quality, quality of life, and neighborhood aesthetics. It would support homeowners with tree maintenance costs. That could be a possible use of in lieu fees by reducing financial barriers to tree preservation. It would allow the city to further partner with some community organizations like 100,000 Trees for Humanity to enhance citywide tree planting efforts. And it would also allow us an opportunity to fund the maintenance and replacement of existing street trees, which would further either financial pressures on the city while moving to support a more walkable, pedestrian-friendly environment. By reinvesting these funds into strategic tree planting and maintenance programs, the city can further strengthen its commitment to sustainability, old wildlife habitats, and climate resilience while creating a more vibrant and green community. The last major update to the ordinance includes updates to the penalties section of the ordinance, as well as the permit duration. And for this, staff is recommending maintenance of the current penalty, which is double the permit fee, but staff is proposing a sliding scale, which would be dependent on the number of trees that were removed. So for example, if 1 tree was being removed without a permit, that would result in a much smaller fine than if 10 trees were removed without a permit. Staff believes that this is a very equitable approach that could be equaled out, but we also are supporting a reduction of the program administration and the permit timeline from 1 year to 3 months with an additional 1 3-month extension available. And the reason for this is, number one, to ensure that if there are any unsafe trees that are currently out there, that they're being removed more expeditiously. It would also ensure that replacement trees are planted sooner, which would allow them the ability to grow and accelerate the canopy restoration. And it would also guarantee that staff have the resources necessary to more efficiently manage and administer the tree removal program for the city. So following tonight's work session, and although tonight does provide the City Council an opportunity to provide any final feedback before the draft ordinance is completed and released back for public review and comment, staff does anticipate that we will finalize the draft ordinance and bring it back to Commission and Council consideration later this spring for adoption. Once it's improved, one of the things that we will be very intentional about is that we're planning to pivot and really focus on a robust education and outreach component. We heard this loud and clear from the council, from the commission, from our community stakeholders, that developing a comprehensive FAQ and a user-friendly materials is very important. We also heard that partnering, and this provides an opportunity for the city to further partner and strengthen our community organizations and our relationships, our community partnerships with neighborhood groups, with HOAs. And again, that would help all with the effort to increase awareness. While we can be enforcers of this new ordinance, it's really incumbent on our collaboration with community partners to make sure that neighbors and individual property owners understand what the updated rules would require. It would also allow us to implement, and it's by doing this, it would also provide a more proactive, collaborative approach to also ensure that the property owners at the very end understand what these regulations mean for them. We will continue to work with our community partners following adoption to provide clear guidance and any resources that are needed. And we are also proposing to follow up with the City Council at a work session later this year to get into the details about how the council would prefer that their in lieu fee program be best utilized and how they feel we should allocate those funds to maximize urban canopy expansion and maintenance efforts. We believe that through this collaborative process, the city is basically committing to a smooth transition to the new regulatory framework while fostering a greater sense of awareness throughout the community and partnership about urban forestry. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I would be remiss if I did not also recognize our landscape architect, Peter Jensen, who is the project manager on this effort, who's also available to answer any questions, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucarco, right? Did I say it right?
You pronounced it very well, thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Okay, and Mr. Jensen, thank you very much for being here. Okay, I didn't see, well, before I go to questions on council, let me open it up to public comment. This is a work session, and we will not be taking any action tonight. We are here to listen and to take questions. I do have one card here in front of me, and I'd like to call upon Mr. Bruce Lepore. And are you in any relation to Mr. Lepore from HARD? No, okay.
Original guy up at Cal State Hayward.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, good evening. Thank you. My name is Bruce Lepore. I'm a 44-year resident of 1065 Central Boulevard. I'm here to offer my comments on the tree ordinance review. And I am a policy wonk, so I'm going to be pretty precise in my comments. My first issue, I have three issues. My first issue is, what is the actual duty of care? 1015.13 requires both a safe and healthy condition, but 1015.15 only requires a state of good health. Since those concepts are mutually exclusive, what's actually being required? Safety or health? If both, they should both appear uniformly in the document so people know what's going on. Moreover, no definition of safety and health or state of good health, either of those concepts are provided, so it's impossible for the tree owner, the property owner, to know exactly what their obligation is. And if the ordinance is being violated, considering that offenses are either criminal or injunctive, as what's called for in the policy for violations, precise definitions are legally required to inform tree owners of how their trees must be maintained. And lastly, there's no enforcement provision is provided. When a property owner fails to maintain their trees in a condition of what the ordinance is requiring, what happens? Will the city commence an enforcement action? And if so, what actions will the city be taking? Right now, I live next to Spring Grove Park. HARD has a stand of 8 eucalyptus trees, excuse me, that I spend 8 to 10 hours a week cleaning up the debris from. My only recourse over the past 20 years I've been dealing with it is to call the Hayward Fire Marshal. They come over, and when the debris gets too bad, then the fire marshal makes them clean it up. I don't think that's what we want to do, and I think the ordinance does provide an opportunity to define what the owner's obligation is. My second issue is to avoid unnecessary litigation. Appeals should end at the elected city council, not appointed planning commission. And don't have different processes for different type of trees. Presently, 1015.28 permit appeal states that for protected trees, if the permit's denied, appeal to the planning director. If the planning director denies, appeals to the planning commissioner, whose decision shall be final and conclusive. But for heritage trees, you can appeal to the city council if denied by the planning commission. Have one process. It would seem to avoid a lot of conflict, and people would be able to follow it much better. My third issue is, since the 1991...
Mr. Lepore?
I'm sorry.
You're out of time, but I'll tell you what,
my apologies.
I will extend you 15 more seconds if you can wrap it up.
Get rid of eucalyptus trees wherever. I'm retired East Bay Mud. I went through the 1991 Oakland Tunnel fire as part of their emergency team. I am an attorney at peripherally involved litigation. Get rid of eucalyptus trees wherever possible. In 1015.22 for approval permit, put in there if it's a eucalyptus tree, that gets approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Our next speaker is Amos White. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Loud. Thank you, Mayor Salinas and honorable council members and staff. My name is Amos White. I'm with 100K Trees for Humanity. We're an urban reforestation nonprofit. We work in urban communities, helping cities, communities, organizations, institutions plant urban trees and increase tree canopies up to 30% by 2030 for climate, for equity, and for public health. Stand here tonight to actually represent your local group of tree planters, none who could make it tonight. I was asked to speak on their behalf. Jennifer Coney, who leads that group as a volunteer, as a lot of you might know, has really been working closely hand in hand with others, and Mike Jameson, Sandra Navala-Lee, and others to help plant this city and help the city and its organizations, from Keep Hayward Clean and Green to the Public Works Department and HARD, which I also would like to recognize, seeing Sarah Lamnon here earlier. But as far as the tree ordinance, really encouraged and excited to have seen the presentation and all the work that Hayward is doing on behalf of its residents. People broadly still see trees as greening, as aesthetics, as nice to have. They don't see trees yet as public health determinants. Literally, your public health is determined by the number of trees, street trees on the street, not in your parks and in your yards, but the number of streets in your neighborhood literally determine that public health and now public safety, with urban heat being the #1 cause of death in climate change. But Hayward has really taken the lead here in the Bay Area in terms of number of trees per year. And I've been citing it nationwide in talks that I've been giving, the work you've done. And also want to recognize the leadership of Councilmember Zermano, who helped pull us together with the city and the Public Works Department to really forward the discussion here. This tree ordinance, we're really excited to support. And as you go through this work session, hope you learn a lot for what can be done with tree canopies and increasing that in partnership with your residents and community organizations. So I wish you well, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have a caller, Mimi Dean.
Good evening. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, cool. Really nice to be here and see everybody. That Women's History presentation was totally incredible, and I absolutely loved it. I just wanted to say I'm really grateful and excited that your tree program includes so much about native trees, because we all know native trees provide habitat for all of our little friends, our pollinators that we all depend on. One thing I know that you guys did talk about was removing eucalyptus trees and the need to remove trees at the SkyWest, former SkyWest golf course. And I get it, because eucalyptus are, they're not great trees, right? I mean, they're invasive, they're non-native, they're dangerous. But the one thing that they do provide is they provide habitat. And they provide habitat for monarch butterflies. And there is a grove in SkyWest that is the 5th largest monarch butterfly site in the state of California. Can you believe that? So we are number 5 in the state of California, and we are the largest monarch butterfly area in the East Bay. So I just, I get it about the eucalyptus, how horrible they are. But how can we do anything against our monarchs when we know that they're on the verge of being declared, on the endangered species list? And I just hope we can keep our urban oasis that's known as SkyWest, keep some of those eucalyptus there. So I just want to say thank you. And I'm so glad we're doing the native trees, but if we could look at what's going on at the SkyWest groves where the monarchs are, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Next caller is Melissa M.
Hi there, this is Melissa Milliman with Keep Hayward Clean and Green. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, thank you. I would like to also echo what the two previous speakers said, and that I really compliment the city on taking on this ordinance, and our city council, Mr. Mayor, and city council members, for everybody having so much awareness for Hayward and increasing tree canopy cover. Not every city is doing this, and I'm really proud that Hayward is taking it on. And I would just also like to, of course, as chair of Keep Hayward Clean and Green, I hope that our group can continue to support the efforts of growing the tree canopy, however we can do that, however it's possible for us to do that. As well, I would like to bring the attention again to the SkyWest area, because although some of the tree canopy there is not native, it is providing crucial habitat. And we have lots of areas and space and places to develop in the city. And I would just, like to encourage the city council to really think about what would be getting taken away as far as carbon sequestration area if that space is developed. It's just turning into really natural beauty. And as Mr. White said, a space for the health of our community members. But again, thank you for your time and everybody's work, the landscape team, planning commission, everybody that's worked so hard on this ordinance. And I hope that we can, all work together from these different teams and organizations to increase the health of our city with tree preservation, especially. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't have any more cards, and I don't see anyone else online, so I'd like to close public comment, and I'll return here to the dais, and I'll start to my left with Councilmember Syra.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report. It's clear that a lot of thought went into this, and I appreciate public commenters coming out to support this important work. I'm really proud that our city is a leader in the space of greening, and also want to acknowledge Councilmember Zermenio for being the biggest cheerleader for planting trees in probably the entire Bay Area. So I'm proud of this work. I had a few questions before moving into comments here. I was curious, one of the public commenters mentioned streamlining the appeals process, maybe not distinguishing between protected and heritage just to simplify it for residents. What are thoughts on that? Does that seem reasonable, or is there a reason why we want to have a separate process?
No, I think we can definitely look into that. I think we were just trying to elevate when you have a larger, more community, a tree that has more community prominence that maybe have a higher level of review, but it doesn't mean that we can't, again, we can't do that, so.
Great, thanks for the answer. Yeah, I think just having a singular process and not letting it just stop at the Planning Commission. I do think there is value for having a Planning Commission be able to vet these things so council can focus on higher level issues, but always keeping the option available for protected or heritage to be able to come to the council if needed. Even with our current process of appeals, we very rarely are getting projects pushed to us. So I have faith in the current system, but just want to maybe have that consistency there. Could you speak a little bit about enforcement? On two sides. One is there's a tree removal penalty. Are the costs set up in such a way that it disincentivizes illegal removal compared to the in lieu fee? In other words, I know there's an in lieu fee, but would it be more cost effective in some ways for them just to remove it illegally and pay the fine? Like, have we done that cost analysis already?
The cost itself to remove the tree is, correct, it's double the fine. We have not done a very specific cost analysis for those that remove a tree. So no, I don't know if DUDEC has provided any additional analysis, Peter, if you're aware. But yeah, we haven't, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any firm delineation between that.
Okay. I mean, the way it's set up makes sense to me. I just want to make sure if we ran a hypothetical that included maybe staff time or legal fees, I just want to make sure it doesn't become a operating cost to say, oh, I know there's an in lieu fee, but we'll just remove it illegally and pay the fine because it's faster for everybody involved. I want to make sure those economics actually make sense if this is to be a successful ordinance. And then, sorry, I got a little confused earlier, but on the enforcement side of things, what happens if we see someone remove a tree illegally? Like, how do we make sure that we're not just passing a law and it doesn't actually get utilized?
So we have, the current process that we receive, that we receive complaints going through our code enforcement division. Typically, those complaints get filed through Access Hayward, and then that gets channeled and reviewed by our landscape architect to determine whether or not it's an actual illegal removal or that tree would have required a permit. We've heard of a lot of complaints about people chopping down trees without permits, but I would also just clarify that there's a large part of a property right now that's not protected. It has no tree protections. And so if somebody wanted to remove that tree in the backyard currently, they could do that. So I think what we're going to continue to do is we're going to continue to try to utilize our enforcement mechanism. We're hoping that with the sliding scale and also trying to be a little bit more equitable, that we'll start to see willful compliance. We did just a brief overview last year, and just for the data for the council, in 2024, we received 106 complaints about tree removals, about trees in general, but when we looked into them a little bit further, only 6 of them were for removing a tree without a permit. The other 100 were for pruning without permits. So we're not seeing a lot of activity that is for people cutting down trees that would otherwise require a permit, and so far this year, we only have 1.
Okay, thank you for that context. A question about redwoods. Right now, redwoods are excluded unless they're above a certain size because they're non-native. I think that's what was in this proposed ordinance. Although I also saw it says that we are looking at trees that have historical and cultural value as part of our category. I mean, that starts to feel a little bit subjective as to whether or not the tree has historical or cultural value. And I guess I'm wondering why exclude redwoods at all? Why make that distinction?
The distinction's made because of the amount of the water use that basically the redwoods take.
Okay.
Right now, protection of trees is based upon basically a size of the tree. Of course, the redwood itself grows and its trunk grows to be a very massive size. So we felt to provide balance for the environment sustainability goals that we have, that bringing it and letting it stand alone basically as a tree and giving it a larger size would allow for us to allow the removal of smaller redwood trees and the mitigation of those trees with more native trees that are better sustainable in Hayward itself.
Understood. And so if a redwood was removed by a developer, let's say, would they still have to pay an in lieu fee for it, even though it's not protected, or would they be excluded from having to pay that fee?
Well, the fee is basically there if they can't mitigate the trees on site. So they would be required to mitigate the trees.
Okay.
Depending upon their site and how many trees they could plant and how many trees are being removed.
Yeah.
If they couldn't do that, then that's basically when the in lieu fee kicks in, and instead of mitigating it on site, then it's mitigated somewhere else in the city. Hopefully in a location where there's canopy deficiency right now.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to make sure when we say a redwood isn't protected, that fee would still apply though if they had to mitigate it off-site.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And then I think my last comment here is, well, 2 more. I agree with the comment around eucalyptus trees being fire hazard, but also wanting to maintain the monarch sanctuary that we have. Is there a way? Do we have any language right now specific to eucalyptus inside of this current proposed ordinance, or a different way of treating them?
Right now, depending upon the size again, a eucalyptus is protected if it's over 8 inches in caliber, which is about this big. So it's fairly small for a eucalyptus tree. So that they are protected. I would say in a fire hazard situation up in the foothills in kind of the interactive space between the urban and the natural area, that we would consider removing them there. But I would say in a location in the urbanized area, we would be looking at maintaining them as much as we could.
That makes sense. So I guess a bit of feedback here would be maybe we could look at adjusting a little bit of the language so that earlier tonight the city manager showed the recent CAL FIRE maps and the hazard areas. Maybe having an exception for eucalyptus trees that are adjacent to those hazard areas, just so we have a bit of flexibility around fire safety. There are folks already in the hills that have begun losing their fire policies, which I think is a very big sign that, if the insurance companies with all their models are starting to see that data, we should be proactive about fire preparedness there as well. But otherwise, I understand in the more urban areas, I'm a little bit less sensitive about keeping them there. And then along the same lines as protecting the butterfly reserve, I'm a little bit concerned about the airport exceptions. Our airport has been operating fine with the current preservation ordinance, and I'm worried that if we move forward with language specific to exempting trees around the airport, this preservation ordinance is going to do the opposite, which is really give license or justification to the removal of a lot of trees. So can you speak a little bit to the airport exception?
I can chime in here. So the update around the airport planting plan was really because the FAA contacted the city and said that we're out of compliance in many areas.
Mm-hmm.
And what that unfortunately meant for us as a jurisdiction is that a lot of our airport staff were going out to individual property owners or homeowner groups and removing trees that were growing too tall because they happened to be in a flight safety area. Mm-hmm. So the idea around creating those is not based on a local regulation, it's actually federal. So we're limited with the height of the trees that can go there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, some trees that get planted without the city's approval can grow for years and years and never be a problem. And then at some point, it gets to be too tall and creates a flight risk. The other thing that we're trying to be mindful of is that there are other options to providing landscaping and plant materials around the airport that don't attract wildlife, mm-hmm. which of course is a key hazard as well. Mm-hmm. And so that was all part of the process of updating the regulations, is to allow for, if a homeowner needs to remove the tree, because it is posing a potential aviation risk, we don't want them to have to pay a fine mm-hmm. or pay a fee to remove the tree or get an arborist report and go through a bunch of hoops, mm-hmm. when really the overarching reason why we're doing that would be public safety. Mm-hmm. Now, there are, as part of that, there is a list of appropriate plant materials and plant species that we have been working with the FAA and our airport team to identify, so that way when a developer or an applicant is looking for guidance on what they can put down there and have it be sustainable, mm-hmm. We would provide that list. And so we are going to be, we do have that list already that we've been working with our consultant team. So when we're saying an exemption for the airport, what we're really talking about is trees that are problematic that need to come out for health and safety reasons, but there could be other trees that could go in there or other landscaping that could replace those trees that don't necessarily pose a safety risk or attract wildlife.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that answer. I'm still sensitive to how broad the exception is currently, because when we say public safety around airplanes, it's whose public safety we're prioritizing here, right? There's a very minimal amount of wildlife-induced accidents on the plane side. A lot of residents on the other side of the airport see the trees as their protection from planes that come down, right? And that's, the trees to them are their public safety versus the public safety or the safety of that specific pilot or that aircraft that decided to use the airport. So I just wanted to point out, like, there's different perspectives on who's actually being kept safe by those trees. I understand if certain trees are a bit too high, bringing them down a little bit, but because the exception is also for the airport master plan, it could also run the risk of saying, well, if the airport master plan that includes a massive development plan that includes, let's say, the wiping out of the Monarch Grove, for example, there's no, I'm worried about there being a lack of an input process before that were to happen if we approve this ordinance. So that's where I'm getting hung up here.
We do have, and something that our team has been working on and the airport staff has been working on is creating a GIS map that really kind of shows the gradation of the flight path. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be informative because in this case, we're talking about trees and wildlife attractors, but in another case, we're talking about someone just wanting to add maybe a 2-story building addition or something even taller. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do again is minimize safety risks, and we will be using that airport map, that GIS layer, to be able to look at and evaluate the request to remove trees. And that's really the intent, is to make sure that if there's an existing tree that is puncturing that airspace map, that would create a safety issue, that would be a situation where it would be a defined safety risk per our code, and that could be grounds for removal.
Okay. Just, I guess my feedback here is I would appreciate if there was some type of community input process built into, what that might look like when it goes into effect. The wholesale exception is still something that doesn't sit right with me, and I guess that would be my feedback here is what does it look like to ensure a bit more community input in this process? If there's a decision to develop on it, I don't want that to just be passed by, right, because this tree preservation ordinance has been passed already, right? Like, a lot of people really care about this SkyWest area. We have more attendees at those meetings than we have at our council meetings. So I just don't want to accidentally pass something that causes us to let go of the ropes and just allow these things to pass on their own. I think you understand my feedback, right? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Goldstein.
Thank you. And you've been working on this for a few years now, so it's nice to see that we're still making progress with it. I happen to agree with Councilmember Syrup. I think having a blanket waiver for the airport is, on the one hand, it seems like a nice idea, the rationale behind it. I know with those trees that grew too tall across the street from the airport on Winton, had to go through lots of review, approval, permitting. That whole process was, quite frankly, kind of nightmarish, considering the level of hazard that those trees had grown to and the amount of fear that the residents had in the community adjacent to those trees. So it does make sense, and yet on the other side of the airport, the folks on that side like the trees. And so it does make sense to be able to provide those waivers, but I happen to agree with Councilman Syrup that there probably needs to be some, I don't know, hearing or adjudication process, or at least an opportunity for citizens to weigh in if they object to tree removal, and just not have it be something that's blanket approval. Second topic is about the butterflies. So I read an article that said that although butterflies show a preference for eucalyptus, it mostly has to do with what trees are there. That originally, when there were population of conifers and some other trees of that nature, that the monarchs actually showed a preference for those. And so it's really just a change in the balance. I happen to live on a street where there's a very large grove of eucalyptus that has grown very tall. And every time I drive by that in these winter storms and in dry summer heat, I just, I can't help but wonder, are my days numbered? Am I going to be driving under that and, the wind blowing? But I know that the property owner doesn't want to remove them because, one, the removal cost alone is really expensive, but then adding on top of that the permit requirements, the fees, and everything. I happen to agree with the fellow that, he's not here now, but the gentleman that was speaking earlier about saying maybe you ought to consider making removal of eucalyptus trees, if you want to remove eucalyptus, just do it. And so have you given any thought to that? Is that something that is percolated from any other avenues?
If a tree is deemed a public safety hazard, then it is exempt in the ordinance that's being proposed by staff. So there is no permit fee required for the removal of that, again, if it's deemed a hazard.
So who makes that determination that it's a hazard? See, I think I'm a pretty smart guy, and I drive under that tree and I'm feeling a sense of fear. Does that qualify as a hazard? Probably not. What does?
That's what the arborist report is required. A certified arborist basically has the means of making the judgment on if the tree is hazardous or not, going through the ISA process of ranking hazardous trees and making sure that that is the actual, that the tree is actually hazardous.
So how close to a street does a tree have to be for a city or some other public agency to send out an arborist and make that determination versus having the property owner? How close to the street?
That's something that's not determined currently in our ordinance now, or any ordinance, I don't believe, in the United States, as the proximity of the tree to the street. So it's something that could be considered, but yeah, I mean, it's the property owner where the tree exists is responsible for the maintenance and the health of the trees.
Right, and so, you know, given how human nature is, on the one hand, I understand we want to leave that in the hands of the property owner, but in reality, the property owner is not going to do anything about it until somebody makes a fuss about it. And when are they going to make a fuss about it? Right? It's probably going to be when the tree is on fire and people can't escape, and you know, their access route, you know, for fire trucks going up the hill is blocked and people trying to come down the hill is blocked. Do we really want to wait that long? So my suggestion is let's consider that and see if there's a different way of handling that so that problematic trees are removed before they actually become a real threat and danger. Is that possible? Is that something you could look at?
We can have further discussions with a consultant about that, sure.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report. I had a quick question. I never thought about this before, but wanted to know what happens if there's another agency that has trees that is removing a tree. Do they have to come to the city? Is it their own jurisdiction? How does that work if it's a heritage tree or something like that?
So currently, like if we're talking about like the school district, for example, they're largely exempt from local regulations. If they don't want to come to the city and apply for a tree removal permit, they can exempt themselves. And so I think that's probably what you're referring to.
Yes, because I know with schools they have CEQA and they have to go through CEQA and they determine those kinds of things. But if it's a heritage tree, didn't know if that was something that we would have to look at for our city. But if they are exempt, so they can exempt themselves for those tree removals through that process, through having a CEQA exemption for it?
They can exempt themselves from local land use control.
Okay, and the same with hard?
I would assume so, correct, yes.
Okay. I do think, though, we should have a conversation with them just to see what their tree ordinance is, if that is something that happens, because it would just be nice, because we are trying to get an inventory in the city, and even though this is our property, I know we're going to do that with private property, but there's more of a potential partnership with those agencies, so maybe it's something that you all can discuss later on, possibly.
We have had discussions with HARD staff about the tree removal process, and in fact, some improvements that were going on at Tennyson Park. Actually, they were proposing some construction of Mia's Playground and some other things that would potentially impact the trees. And where we have local land use control, so there's a couple of parcels there that we own. If we own the parcel, but it's managed by HARD, we do have the ability to enforce our regulations, which in that particular case we did.
Okay, great. Awesome. And then wanted to know if fire has had an input on this, or if they haven't, when will they, given that we just received an update on the fire hazard maps?
Yeah, so the fire department's been involved with discussions. We've met with each of the internal stakeholder groups to kind of find out what their concerns are as we were developing the program. And what we had heard was very similar to, I think, what we're all experiencing now, is that there's a concern about having to go through a bunch of hoops to remove trees that could potentially be wildfire hazards. And so that was part of the reason why we carved out that hazard exception in there, that if the city determines that keeping the tree would create an additional public safety risk, then we can potentially have it removed, or it can get removed without having to go through a bunch of hoops.
Okay, great. And then there was a question in our email about box trees, and I know there's a couple of lines in our ordinance about box trees, and I was curious about the mulch that is around the box tree or what's around it. Is there any kind of percentage required in ratio to what the trees installed and what should be installed? Just thinking about mulch and fire safety, just wanted to know if there was any other guidance on that.
So we're going to be, we've been working with our consultant to develop a guiding document that is really going to help inform. Every tree species is different because they have a different root ball structure, and they all require different irrigation and planting and different space requirements.
Okay.
That has been the problem, honestly, that we've seen throughout Hayward.
Right,
Is that people are planting trees that shouldn't be there because the trees get too big, and then it uproots sidewalks, and it causes damages to properties. And so part of this outreach effort that we will take on after we adopt this is really coming up with a best practices, not only in planting, but also in maintenance, to make sure that they're leaving enough space, if they're considering planting a new tree, that the tree is actually going to be able to survive in this location without causing additional impacts to foundations or property damage and stuff like that. So we are and they're going to be creating a handout that would allow for a kind of a guiding document to help homeowners. Again, it's reflected on best practices in horticulture and planting.
Okay, and then I know there's been a couple of comments about FAA and community input. I definitely want to make sure we're following FAA regulations, and we could take in community input, but we need to be safe with aviation, right? So just want to.
And I can confirm, as part of this, we've been working, again, really collaboratively with the airport manager out there, and who has been very instrumental in being able to partner with us and our consultant the entire way on this discussion. They've also had an opportunity to weigh in on our ordinance, and so they've, again, they were part of our scope, and so they have been included as part of the discussions throughout this process.
Okay, and do we know if the monarch butterfly is native in this area? Or is it just being introduced or just flying through?
The migratory path goes
path.
primarily through western coast of California.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this great report. I really appreciate everyone's hard work on this, and the Planning Commission, the Planning Department, the community, and everyone who provided such good input. I also appreciate how comprehensive the community input has been to get us to this point, but I do have a couple of questions. So if someone, submits a permit and the permit gets denied, what happens after that? Or I guess my follow-up question is there some kind of education or outreach that goes on with that? Because although I appreciate kind of the comprehensive nature of this, it is quite complex, right? So I'm thinking of the average, and I think from a developer perspective, it's pretty clear they're used to dealing with regulations and complexity and all of that stuff. So I'm not as concerned from that angle, but I'm more concerned with the individual homeowner trying to navigate the complexities of something like this. So I guess what would happen if they submit a permit and it gets denied?
Well, number one, if it got, we wouldn't, they would not be charged if they were not issued a tree removal permit. So that's the first thing. It's not just, it's not a payment required kind of situation. But again, it really we haven't really done a lot of robust outreach because we haven't had the resources to really do that. We've been working, as I mentioned before, from a very old ordinance that hasn't really been updated to reflect some of the more climate resilient kind of sustainability policies. And so trying to be very intentional about creating new handouts. And there is going to be a learning curve. And I think we've heard loud and clear that the community outreach, and we can't just rely on the same old sending an email blast. In some cases, it may require going out to individual HOAs and providing some input and providing some direction on just how to maintain and assist neighbors. So I think education is going to be a huge component of that. The other option that I'll just say is, again, as part of the ordinance, we're recommending the in lieu fee be provided. So if a particular homeowner has a competing interest, let's say they want to add an ADU, or they want to add solar, or they want to do something else, which obviously is also addressing the housing crisis or our sustainability goals, they have the option to do an in lieu fee and mitigate that tree off site, and that tree could then be used elsewhere. So I would absolutely agree. I think as with any new regulation that hasn't really been adopted yet, and these are mostly relatively, it's a new process. But I would also say what we're proposing is providing flexibility that currently doesn't exist with our existing ordinance. It doesn't exist for developers, and it doesn't exist for homeowners. And so again, can we create a policy that is balanced, that could provide that flexibility and yet meet multiple objectives? Absolutely. But there is going to be a learning curve there.
Yep, and I appreciate that. And I'm just wondering how we minimize that learning curve. So for an example, when we did the districting process, there was a really intuitive website that was set up where you were able to go, so I'm kind of wondering how we do that here. I appreciate kind of the guiding document that we're going to be creating, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. But I'm also really looking forward to something very visual, something very simple. Like if they don't even know what kind of tree it is, maybe there's pictures of trees, but just something to really make this more intuitive so that we can drive higher levels of compliance, because I think everyone in the community recognizes the benefits that come with having more trees, with having a strong tree preservation ordinance, with making sure, equity, climate, public health, all the things that we heard today. And I think just making it as easy as possible for us to do the right thing would be great. My next question is, I know we're going to come back and talk about in lieu fees later, but what kind of programs are set up for lower income residents in Hayward who might be income restricted and maybe can't afford the permitting and or kind of to go through this process to remove a tree that could be, impacting their home, their sidewalks, or whatever the case is?
So that was something that we had talked about, and we had put in the report as an option. Of course, that's up to the city council, but we have also talked with our maintenance services division, our department, and trying to get some feedback from them. One of the biggest challenges, I think, for an individual homeowner, especially those that are low income, are just being able to finance maintenance of a tree that could be in your backyard. And so one of the things that we'll be asking council to weigh in on is whether or not they would be willing or would like to set aside a certain pot of money to partner with community organizations or to partner with tree companies that are certified, that know what they're doing, that could do like a dump day where you can drop off all of your unnecessary electronics or whatever. Maybe have a tree cleanup day and really kind of target areas of the city that can actually go out and proactively support the maintenance of those trees. That's just one option. I'm sure it's not the only option, but it's something that we did talk about with our consultant that could be a potential option if the council wishes to pursue that.
I mean, I think that's a great idea, actually. So I encourage my colleagues to kind of be expansive in our thinking about how we leverage this money, because even on some of these windy days that we've just had recently, there's been concerns from people in the neighborhood about, the safety of their trees, and is it going to impact their neighbors, and what happens if their tree does fall over because it hasn't been maintained. And I think these issues, do impact people who generally don't have the income to be able to maintain these trees. So I do like that idea. And, these trees are meant for equity. And I think, as we think about in lieu fees, leveraging those in an equitable way seems to make a lot of sense to me too. And then my last point is also around the airport. So in the staff report, the update on page 8, it's kind of, it says exemptions that allow applicants to remove trees that are dying or dead, considered hazardous, or conflict with FAA safety regulations around the airport. I completely agree with that, and I can completely agree with Councilmember Andrews around making sure that, FAA safety guidelines are followed. But in the draft ordinance, there's like an and at number 4. So it says, removal of trees consistent with FAA, and it's almost like removal of trees consistent with the City of Hayward Executive Airport Plan. Am I reading those two as almost mutually exclusive?
They're together. They're together. So the FAA has their set of regulations, but as I had mentioned, we're working on some safety maps that can help better inform. So there may still be trees that are being proposed in certain areas that are within an airport safety zone, but they may not be the species or the height that would preclude them from that would require that they be removed. So it's not only looking at what are potential aviation impacts from trees that grow too tall, but it's also looking at where that particular property is located in relationship to the flight path.
Got it. So in order, sorry to be dense on this one, just one more follow-up. So for the executive airport plan, The exemption would have to be related to a safety issue related to that tree that's then impacting this plan. It just couldn't be, the plan calls for the removal because we want to do some development here. It has to be tied back to a safety issue, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. And again, great work. I'm really excited to see this come forward tonight and as comprehensive as what it is. Thank you again.
Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for all the great work here. I mean, this is our 4th work session now, right? There was a City Council work session, 2 Planning Commission work sessions, and now we're doing this today again from the City Council. So I really think that you've done great work to listen to everybody's comments and bring us back something that incorporated all of that. And the first thing I wanted to be clear for the public's point of view, that this is not dealing with street trees, right? That there's a separate ordinance for that. Can you clarify that? Because we got some public comments around street trees.
That's correct. The street tree requirement is a separate requirement in the ordinance that mandates certain street tree plantings for new development, which is separate from this. We still may get requests to remove street trees, but that gets channeled through the Maintenance Services Division.
Great, and like compliance and everything with street trees, that's all under a different ordinance.
Correct.
Great, okay, I wanted to clarify that. And then just to follow up a little bit on the redwood tree exception, because it says that for non-native trees that are greater than 8 inches, that they're protected then as a native tree would be protected, but not redwood trees. Redwood trees have to be 36 inches, is that correct? But a native tree could be considered a heritage tree if it's found to have some particular habitat for some species. Is that right? Okay, so there's lots. I mean, so it sounds like, and then it does seem like some of these things become a bit arbitrary. Like who is the sort of judge of this, right? Like what kind of species is this, and what? Yeah.
So a lot of what we rely on, a couple things. We have a couple of wonderfully licensed landscape architects that have background and that training to be able to identify. And so part of their role when a tree removal permit comes in is to be able to evaluate. And it's also part of what happens when a development project gets submitted and we get an arborist report to review. We have to go through that arborist report, and oftentimes there's an appraised value, there's pictures that are included. We have to be able to find an agreement with that report that demonstrates that the trees are worthy of saving, or we have to agree that the trees are not worth saving or that they could be too heavily impacted. So yeah, that expertise is largely left to staff, except for when we have large development projects or projects that require an arborist report. It's up to the applicant to hire a certified arborist that have the qualifications to make that determination. And as you pointed out, Councilmember Roche, every tree is going to be different, and that's why unfortunately, it's really difficult to create a one-size-fits-all approach, because every tree is going to reach maturity at a different time. Every tree is going to have its own inherent sort of risks. Some of them have a shallow root system that could cause damage, and others have a shallow root system that doesn't cause damage, right? So that's been kind of the challenge of trying to create. And so what we're trying to do is create some flexibility in the ordinance that allows our landscape professionals to be able to review these on a case-by-case basis when they get submitted to the city.
And then then there's appeals process, right? If they don't agree with it, then that's what we're talking about, potentially streamlining. Okay, thank you. And then I also understand like part of the pushback or part of the discussions, what was around this idea that we're going to now regulate backyard trees. And I really want to appreciate the Planning Commission's discussion on that, wanting to come back and talk about what we're talking about. We're talking about people's property rights. I think it's still important. I'm glad we're doing it, but I'm glad we've taken that part seriously. And I think there are lots of exceptions, ways to mitigate the in lieu fee. I think the sliding scales, I think we're trying to do as much as we can to appreciate that. It is hard to say to somebody in your backyard, we're going to regulate whether you can take that tree out or not. But I still think that there's a value in doing that to maintain Hayward's tree canopy. I think to maintain our tree canopy the way it is and go further with it, I think the only way we're going to do that is if we're able to look at all native trees. So I appreciate what we're doing with this, and I appreciate that we've taken it seriously, that we're talking about people's backyards. And I really like the way the ordinance talks about canopy replacement and not tree replacement, so that you can't just sort of like take out an old tree, big old tree, and replace it with something smaller, that you really have to replace the whole canopy if you're going to take out a tree like that. So I think it's important what we're doing here with that wording as well. In other words, that's it. I just appreciate what we're doing here, and I hope we move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zermania.
Mayor, thank you. Jeremy, thank you very much. Good knowledge, very good. I liked all of these. I approve them 100%. They are flexible and they do provide tree protection, and that's something that's very important to us. 3 quick questions. I was looking for language that would state that one of our missions is to become an urban forest. Is that something that we can include?
It's interesting you mentioned that, because that development of an urban forestry plan is something that is in our general plan for implementation. And it is something I think that would naturally kind of flow out. As you probably remember, last time we came to the council, we were presented the tree canopy. And the tree canopy really looked at what is the citywide coverage, and that was providing us with the baseline for where we are today. Right. It doesn't necessarily talk about where we want to go tomorrow, but that would, again, that's where the urban forestry management plan comes in. So ideally, when resources are available, we could work on or we can explore looking at the urban forestry management plan. But that's where a lot of those specific criteria in terms of policy would be entailed, would be included.
So let's see if we can include that. I would also like to see that last photograph that you have included somewhere in the package when we go to the community, so they can see that, as Mr. Amos pointed out, trees are our health. And if they can see that tree-lined street, that would be tremendous. And also, I receive a lot of questions about what are our native trees, what are our heritage trees. I have a hard time telling them. So maybe our next newsletter, our next green newsletter could include photos and names of our native trees and the ones that we're planning on Main Street, on Mission, for example. They want to know what kind of trees. So let's educate our public on all of that. So urban forest is good. Let's see. How serious, I'm thinking about a couple of emails that we received this last week. How serious are we about requiring that there be a tree in front of every house in Hayward? How serious are we about that? Is that something you can answer?
Our ordinance currently requires it, and it requires street tree plantings as a matter of development, as a development requirement. Okay. So you're not really hitting that threshold unless you're proposing a new development. Okay. So if there's any street tree plant, are you talking about street trees per se, or are you just talking about?
Street trees, yes.
Yeah, so aside from that, it would be really working with our maintenance services division and public works to determine where the street trees could go, what species are appropriate to go there, and to verify that we have enough space. But it is currently a requirement in the ordinance for new development to plant a certain number of street trees based on the frontage.
But not a requirement for existing households, and perhaps that's where we need to get a hold of some of these folks to let them know it's a requirement for new developers, but it's not a requirement for established households. Is that where you are headed?
Correct, yeah. We wouldn't knock on somebody's door and say you need to put a tree in.
All right, very good. So my neighbors don't have a tree. They're going to say, I don't want a tree, and we can't do anything about it, correct? All right.
Correct.
All right, good. Have we done a study as to how many possible trees there are in a square mile of Hayward? Has that ever been done?
The maintenance service staff is actually going to start tree inventory count soon. That will give us all that data.
At the moment, we don't have one.
No.
All right, let's see. All right, so I spoke about the photos that should be included, native trees. We do need to plant more trees. I agree with Mr. Amos. We need to plant 30,000 trees, 20,000, 100,000 trees. So the more that we do, the better. Partnerships. We mentioned HARD, we mentioned HUSD. Let's see if we can also establish a partnership with PG&E and Caltrans, Chabot College, Cal State. Every time I turn around, they're chopping down trees. Even at Chabot College. I mean, come on, Chevrolet College used to be a forest, and now quite a few of them are gone. So if PG&E does the same thing, and they also destroy the trees as they are being pruned because of the cables. So let's see if we can establish some kind of working relationship with them. All right, so in lieu fees, I like that idea, and let's use that money to plant trees where trees are missing. And if we can handle, there was a mention about lower income areas, okay, by all means, plant along Patrick, along Schaefer, along Tennyson Road, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, the last photo I mentioned, all right, partnerships, okay, how many? I do like, please, I'm happy that this is being done. And do you need anything else from us besides our approval? I think we've gotten some good ideas. I appreciate what my colleagues have mentioned. If we have to penalize someone, so be it. I actually lost a couple of votes because I refused to help somebody, a couple of homeowners, get rid of their trees out in front. I said, I'm not going to vote for you. I said, well, sorry, I'm not going to help you kill a tree. So that's very important. If you have a lower income resident, then let's see if we can come up with some kind of a waiver of some sort. That's very, very important. And let's not kill more trees than we need to, please. Let's be careful with them. And thanks again. Very knowledgeable. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Syra had a last question.
Thank you. Just a brief question/comment. So earlier, Councilmember Bonilla asked to define between the FAA regulations and requirements and then the City of Hayward's executive airport plan. It says tree removals consistent with the safety requirements defined by the FAA and the City of Hayward executive plan. Are we talking about the safety requirements defined in that plan or just the plan in general?
So, and that was a good point of clarification. So what we're proposing is that an exemption would exist for trees that are in conflict with the FAA flight requirement, as well as they are located in a flight safety zone area that would cause an additional safety risk. So we're really trying to do a couple things. We're trying to minimize the height of those trees, and we're trying to minimize the wildlife that those trees would attract.
Okay, so I understand the FAA's requirements, and I want to be clear, I'm not here asking us to break the law. If there's a federal aviation requirement that says they have to be this height, yes. I think my issue is when we say, or at least the way it's written right here, maybe this is the point of feedback that I hope you could adjust, is when it says, and the City of Hayward Executive Airport Plan, anything can be in that plan, right? The next iteration can say, we're gonna bulldoze the entire thing and pave it. And then, you know, all of a sudden this exemption is in compliance with that new plan. And that's what I'm worried about, is I think if you're able to introduce language that's more specific to the safety issues relative to that plan, I could live with it a bit more, but I just wanted to clarify that distinction.
We're happy to do that. I think that's a good point to make, because we don't want to come up with a new set of regulations and have those be confusing.
Thank you.
So I hear your comment, council member, and we'll be happy to clarify that language so it's clear.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to be clear, we're not going to break any federal laws, correct?
I'm not going to say, yeah, we're not going to break any laws, correct?
Great, thank you. Okay, I appreciate it. Everything has been said. I think I wanted to thank all my colleagues for making their contributions to this. Thank you very much. You're off the hook tonight. And I believe since this is a work session, I will close this item, and I believe you have what you need, correct?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next item, which is the greenhouse gas emissions inventory. This is another work session. Review and discuss the 2023 greenhouse gas emission inventory. Report from Director of Public Works, Alex Amiri. But, I do see Mr. Amiri here, and Eric Pearson sitting right next to him. So, Mr. Amiri, go right ahead.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. GHG emission inventory is typically presented to the Sustainability Committee of Council. Because the 2023 inventory included Hayward Airport emissions, the item was presented to the Council Infrastructure and Airport Committee. So the committee recommended that instead of taking the item to Sustainability Committee so that only 6 council members would hear it, it's best to bring it to the full council, and that's why we are here. We have a brief presentation which will be given by Environmental Services Manager Eric Pearson, who's here. Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Director Mary. Good evening, Mayor and council members and community members. Tonight I'd like to share the results of our community-wide greenhouse gas emissions inventory, which was recently completed for calendar year 2023. As you can see in the first row of this table, Hayward has very ambitious goals for reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and 2045. The second row here shows actual emissions reductions. You can see that in 2023, we saw a 35% decrease in emissions from our 2005 baseline. And so, therefore, our goals for 2020 and 2025 have been achieved. You can also see that in 2020, our emissions reduction was 42% below 2005 levels. This large decrease was related to the pandemic and the related disruptions we saw. And then also the emissions since 2020 have increased, but not to pre-pandemic levels. And then the goal for 2030 is a 55% reduction by 2030. And we are currently focusing on this 2030 goal by implementing the programs from the updated Climate Action Plan, which Council adopted last year. And then finally, with this slide, you can see this column here shows that emissions were reduced in every category with the exception of off-road vehicles. This category includes construction equipment as well as landscaping equipment. So I'm going to dive a little bit into each of the categories. The first here is energy used by buildings, basically electricity and natural gas. Electricity emissions have decreased significantly, 86% since 2005. You can see that 2019 was the lowest year we had, and that was the first full year of service with Ava Community Energy, previously known as East Bay Community Energy. And Ava's Bright Choice product had a much higher carbon intensive sources in 2020. However, the emissions have decreased since then. And in 2023, the Bright Choice product was 88.9% carbon-free. And you can also see that PG&E was 100% carbon-free in 2023. This chart also shows natural gas, and natural gas use decreased by 9% since 2005. Here we have transportation emissions. We've seen a 32% decrease since 2005. The green line shown here shows vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. We saw a large decrease in 2020, again due to the pandemic. It increased in 2021 and 2022, but then it decreased slightly in 2023. So VMT has increased since the pandemic, but again, not to pre-pandemic levels. This may be due to the continued popularity of hybrid and remote work arrangements. The other thing to note here is that the emissions are not exactly following the growth in VMT, and this is likely due to the continued increases in electric vehicles and just cleaner cars in general. So when the council adopted the Climate Action Plan last year, there was some discussion about the fact that the inventory did not include emissions from the Hayward Executive Airport. So council asked that we include airport emissions in future inventories. So we worked with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, now known as the Bay Area Air District, to develop these estimates. And we found that in 2023, approximately 4,779 metric tons of emissions came from the airport. This is approximately 0.8% of the community total, so less than 1% of our community-wide emissions. It's also about 1.3% of our total transportation emissions. You can also see here on this table that most of the operations are from single piston aircraft, but most of the emissions are from the larger aircraft types. Then we have off-road emissions. As I mentioned, this includes construction equipment. The emissions decreased 7% in the last couple of years, but since 2005, we've seen a large increase, partially due to construction activity, but also in 2022, we added in lawn and garden equipment emissions, and that data was previously unavailable. But overall, off-road emissions are still less than 6% of our total community-wide emissions. Just a couple more sectors here. Solid waste, we saw a 36% reduction below 2005 levels, likely due to the continued diversion of organic material from the landfill. And then water and wastewater, we've reduced emissions 57% since 2005. Since 2005, we've seen a significant decrease in overall water use. Our per capita residential water use decreased from 69 down to 45 gallons per capita per day. So just a few notes about this inventory. The numbers presented here should be considered estimates. They are not accounting as in terms of as you would see with financial accounting. And while our methodology is the one used by cities around the world, this is not a complete carbon footprint. So it does not account for the emissions that come from the products that we buy and the food that we purchase. So, but it does measure the sectors that are addressed in our climate action plan. So with that, we recommend that the council accept any public comments and then review and comment on the report.
Thank you very much. Last time I started on my left, I will start on my right with Councilmember Zermeño.
Thank you, Mayor.
You know what, Councilmember Zermeño, I'm going to go to public comments before I come back up here, so I apologize. I don't have any cards, and I don't see any hands raised online, so I'm going to close public comment, and then Councilmember Zermeño.
Thanks again, Mayor, and thank you again, my two favorite members of the Green Team of the City of Hayward, Alex and Eric. I always ask this question whenever we see this report. How come the number of gas emissions are so high for the off-road vehicles? I always ask that. And how can we lower it?
Yeah, well, I think that the numbers do look large, but again, they're relatively small compared to the rest of our community-wide emissions. But I'd say, you know, effective January of last year, you know, small gasoline-powered lawn and garden equipment is no longer available to purchase as new equipment. So that should help us to see some reductions going forward.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing is, looks like we are going to meet our objectives, our goals, correct? So are there any measurable steps that we can take to ensure that we do meet those goals? Are we going to be there?
It's going to be very difficult to meet the next goal, which is 55% by 2030. You know, we only have about 5 years to go. There's a lot we need to do, and really it includes reducing the use of natural gas in our existing buildings. And so that's something we are currently studying, how to craft some programs that can help us achieve that.
Okay.
And then transportation is our biggest sector, and you know, we are seeing more cleaner vehicles coming on the road.
All right, and these numbers don't include the number of people who drive by Hayward, right? Or do they?
It does include vehicles entering or
right.
Yeah.
Now, but we're not responsible for the guys, the people who drive through them and go all the way to Tracy or whatever. Okay. And we do know that planting more trees will help meet our goal, correct?
not exactly reflected in the methodology for this inventory.
Okay.
But yes, it will reduce
All right.
carbon in the atmosphere for sure.
Right. So let's include that somewhere in this presentation or this language. And thank you again.
Thank you. Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Yes, just to follow up on, well, first of all, thank you for including the airport emissions numbers, because that was a discussion last time that people were concerned we were somehow hiding the ball. And so thanks for including that and, just showing us what a small percentage it is overall of our emissions in the city of Hayward. And then the other thing is, so it took a pandemic to get us down to 42.2%. What is our biggest sort of bang for our buck as far as making a change to, I agree with you, I think it's gonna be hard to get to that 55% by 2030. What can, again, I heard you say, reducing, give me a few talking points there.
Yeah, I'd say reducing natural gas use in existing homes. The Bay Area Air District has rules that are scheduled to take effect in 2027. And at that point, replacing water heaters and furnaces will need to be electric. With a few years later for larger commercial buildings, but that's going to help quite a bit. So those rules are somewhat controversial, so any support we can lend to the Air District to keep those on the books.
And on the transportation side, is there anything that anybody's doing in the country locally to put in local restrictions as people are moving through the city on emissions for transportation?
I don't think we have.
Because I just think that's a really hard one, right? That's going to be harder unless, except just wait for people to adopt electric vehicles.
Yeah, and continue to encourage folks to use alternative transportation. We are always improving our bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure.
Yeah. And then with the sort of increase of data centers all over the Bay Area, what should that become an issue in Hayward, what would that do to our emissions?
That's a good question. Data centers use a huge amount of electricity, but the new ones that we're seeing proposed are committing to use 100% renewable electricity. So, if that becomes the case, then there will be no effect on our inventory.
Okay. Yeah. So that sounds like that's something we really need to work on holding them to that they're doing that. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this report. I just have one quick question. So I get the numbers from 2005 until now, kind of shows this decrease with the population size increasing. But from 2021 to 2023, there was an increase of about 1.3%. Is that kind of consistent with surrounding jurisdictions, or is that higher or lower? I guess, how do we understand or interpret that increase?
I haven't had a chance to review, and I'm not even sure any of our neighboring cities have completed the inventory for 2023 yet. A lot of this data just became available recently, and a lot of cities don't prepare inventories every year. So, but it's something we can keep an eye out for.
So if we saw kind of this 1.3% trend increase, obviously we want to see a decrease. So I guess I guess you answered it in Councilmember Rocha's response, and kind of what would be the things that we would need to do to really drive down this number, because we're going in the opposite direction from where we want to be going.
Yeah, I'd say, again, natural gas. We are, and something we discussed with the Sustainability Committee last week is a program that would require annual reporting from our larger commercial and multifamily buildings. That would require that they meet certain targets, to eventually achieve carbon neutrality by 2045.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then just continuing to look for incentives to really help people get here too, because it could be a little expensive when you make the initial move. I know it pays for itself over time, but the initial pivot could be a little bit expensive. So thank you for this.
Thank you for the report. I know we had extensive comments and questions earlier in the committee, but just wanted to ask just two quick questions. Wanted to know about the capital improvement projects at the wastewater treatment facility and seeing how this will impact in future years. And I'm hoping that will help us get us there closer, but I know it's going to take longer than 5 years. So just wanted to see if you had some insight of how much we are estimating for that project to help.
So as you know, at the wastewater treatment plant, we not only produce all of the electricity there that we need by renewable energy, by solar or using biogas, but also we export some of that to outside entities, including City Hall. As part of, as we need more electricity as part of the improvements that we are planning to do in the next 5 years, there is also plan to increase renewable energy by building second phase of our solar.
Okay,
We
great.
still have another 1.4 megawatt of electricity
That's
to
what I was
build. We are not building it right now because we can't use that electricity. And
Okay.
as new facilities come online citywide, the city facilities, I mean, there is solar on top, on the roof, so that they don't create more demand. So we are waiting for our project to be completed and create demand so that we can implement our solar project.
Okay, great. And then wanted to know if there, and I know you mentioned the change in law for the lawnmowers or the landscaping equipment. Are there any programs out there for people who want to turn it in? And I know that there's been some residents who have mentioned that as a nuisance, but we now have the law on the books, but it's still going to take time because it's for new equipment. So do you know if there's any kind of buyback program or any agency that's helping with that?
No, I'm not aware of anything
Okay.
in our area.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thank you. All my questions been answered. Nice work.
Seeing no more questions, Councilmember Syra.
Thank you for the report and keep up the great work. I'm excited to see us making progress on this. I think my questions were answered as well. I did want to point out, I know that the greenhouse gas emissions at the airport might appear small, but the total emissions was actually slightly higher than all of our bus emissions in this report. And I just want to put that into perspective. We've had conservatively around 4 million bus rides in a year, and that's a conservative estimate when it relates to the amount of trips taken through Hayward on a Hayward bus line, compared to the 122,000 operations at the airport. So this is still a significant amount of emissions for a very small amount of residents or users of the airport. And I'm glad that this information is included because air travel is incredibly polluting, even if it's not a very large number. In addition to cleaner vehicles, I like that you mentioned improving bicycling, improving public transportation. I mean, it's not just about buying green vehicles, it's about changing the ways in which we travel. When we talk about facilitating walkable neighborhoods and building new amenities in our neighborhoods, these are ways in which we reduce greenhouse gas emissions too. So there's an economic development portion to this, there's a zoning portion to this. And I just hope as we continue to achieve these aggressive goals, we're thinking about attacking it from all these angles besides go and buy a Tesla, right? Like, I don't think that's gonna be the key here. There's a lot of different angles we have to take to this. So I just wanted to surface that for the community. There's a number of ways we're attacking this issue, and we'll continue to. Thank you.
Thank you. I will add on this, just to respond to some of the comments about the airport. I guess it was last summer, and I think then interim city manager Dustin Clausen was with me. I don't know whether you were with me in Fremont at the mayor's conference. Yeah, I forget the name of the company. Whisk. Whisk was non-operate. I forget what the acronym was, but they were non-human operated aircraft.
They were autonomous.
Autonomous. There you go.
And electric aircraft as well.
Yeah, autonomous and electric aircraft that are being tested and built in Fremont, and if I recall correctly, the part of the presentation was about the vision of this company, Whisk, was to make autonomous electric aircraft as accessible as like Uber or taxis. And one of the challenges that they were working through were landing, places where they can land and take off. And, I am proud to say that only 3 cities, well, excluding Oakland, only 3 cities in Alameda County had ready to go landing pads and launching pads. And that was Livermore, Fremont, and yours truly. So when we talk about, and they were pretty aggressive. I mean, the concept and their testing and their piloting was very aggressive, and they were, the future. I'll say it this way: the future with this particular autonomous flying machine. I don't know. I forget what they call it, but this aircraft was pretty significant, and it would literally be a game changer, at least around the Bay Area when it came to moving people around the Bay Area. I don't think of course, another one of their challenges was the battery life wasn't that long, because it took so much power to go up and to, but basically it was to launch. It took a lot of battery power. But anyways, thank you, Mr. Ameri. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Good work on this. I wanted to thank everyone, thank my colleagues for all of their comments on this. And there are some bright spots that we can all be proud of here. So if there are no other comments or questions, I can close this item and thank Mr. Ameri and Mr. Pearson. And I can move on to council reports and announcements. Are there any council reports and announcements? Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Rhodes.
I just wanted to wish everybody belated Happy St. Patrick's Day. Even though it is a really fun holiday, it's also a great time to recognize the importance of Irish Americans in this country. So I just wanted to wish everyone a belated Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Absolutely. Also, I wanted to thank my colleagues for getting on board on this particular little project that kind of enveloped into something pretty big. A little context, Tennyson High School, there's a program at Tennyson High School called We the People. We the People is a nationally known program that teaches high school students about government process and about local government, state government, and federal government. And it's a national program where individual school districts group or recruit students to form clubs where they further their education around government and politics. Tennyson High School, they have a club. Their club has been doing a lot of work with We the People, and they are going to be getting a John Lewis Award. And I think if I understand it correctly, they are the only high school in the United States that will be getting the John Lewis Award in the We the People organization. It's a pretty big deal, and but the challenge is we need to raise enough money to get them to Washington, D.C. They have money. They still need a little bit more to get there. There's about 22 students that are currently enrolled in the program. And this Sunday, March 23rd, at Casa del Toro restaurant, we are holding a fundraiser that people can come, say hello, and make a contribution. The nice thing is that this fundraiser has generated the enthusiasm and the interest and the enthusiasm of virtually every local elected in the East Bay, in the Hayward and Hayward area. So from the city council, from the school board, HARD, Eden Health Township, our assembly member, our state senator, our congressman, did I say the Park District? Who else? The Alameda County Office of Ed, the two individuals that represent Hayward in the Hayward area. Anyways, it is a pretty strong list of supporters that are going to be coming together on Sunday. And if you are around on Sunday from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, join us at Casa del Toro. Come on out, help us support Tennyson High School students, and let's try to get them to Washington, D.C., and I believe the trip is planned for the end of April. So I wanted to thank all my colleagues for joining on board on this. Hopefully we can get the money that we can get them to Washington, D.C. With that said, there are no council referrals, and so I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting is on March 25th, 2025 at 9 a.m. Is that March 25th, 2025 at 9 a.m.?
7 p.m., Mayor.
Okay, because on my agenda, it says March 25th, 2025 at 9 a.m., so.
I think that's a note.
Yeah.
That's in the notes. My apologies.
Oh, okay, it's okay. Okay, that is the next meeting with no further business. Meeting adjourned.